to the value. Welcome to the Value Added Producer Grant webinar. We are very excited this morning to be able to talk to all of you about this exciting USDA program. To me, this is the closest thing there is to free money for farmers, particularly small and medium-sized farmers. Sounds like somebody needs to be muted, Emily. Um, Yeah, a little bit of background on me. My name is Melissa Moeller. I was a farmer for 16 years. I owned and operated Misty Meadows Farm up in Whatcom County. And in that time as a farmer, I discovered the Value Added Producer Grant Program for my own farm. I applied for and won a Value Added Producer Grant to take retired laying hens and turn them into soup stock. And that worked out so well for me and my farm in terms of helping me to grow that I did a second value added producer grant to take chicken poop and turn it into bagged chicken manure. And then my third and final VAPG for my own farm was selling more eggs to more people and more places. And then at that point, decided what I really loved doing was helping other farmers access the capital that they need to grow their business. So I'm super excited this morning to be able to introduce Jeff Peterson and Micah McLean from USDA Rural Development. They are here to explain the program to all of us and to answer any questions that everyone has. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to kind of do the first part of this, and then my colleague Micah will jump in about halfway through. First of all, just thank you, Melissa, and the rest of y'all at NABC, Emily, and everyone there, partner on a lot of different projects with NABC, and we appreciate really this platform to kind of show our wares, and we think this is a pretty cool program too, and so we'll talk through these slides. I'll try not to read them too much. I don't know how many y'all just jumped on, but our power's out everywhere. I didn't have power at home, and I didn't even have power at the office. I'm in a different office, so if I think you can see my slide. If I didn't do a good job shaving, um, it it was hard to do with an electric razor in the dark. So here we go. Anyway, the purpose of this grant is it's to help for-profit agricultural producers successfully process, market, and sell value-added products, expand markets for egg producers, and strengthen rural economies. In my own words, I really think this is really all about, at the end of the day, putting more money in farmers' pockets. So that was the whole idea behind this program. We're going to kind of show you what kind of projects might be eligible, and kind of help you through this process today. So hang on, and we'll make our way through this. Next slide. So the two different types of grants that we have here are planning grants and working capital. The planning grant, a little bit smaller. The maximum during this competition is going to be 50,000. And these are grants that are primarily to kind of help you figure out if this value-added product, if it makes sense. It's going to help you also. Doesn't I don't think it's really necessarily there to tell you what to grow or that sort of thing. You come in with an idea and develop a feasibility study to see if maybe there is that market, and on top of that, how that planning process can be used to help kind of build that plan on how you might market. It might be logos and that sort of thing. We'll get into that more as we go along. It's an area that we hope to see more of these this year. In the past, it's been more the working capital, which is It's kind of just how it sounds. It's the operational expenses, kind of those working capital expenses that farmers are going to encounter post-harvest. So it cannot cover production expenses or equipment. There's some minor exceptions there that we'll get into later. But this is our most common one, and it's up to 200,000, but does require a one-to-one match. Don't let that scare you. We'll talk about that more. It's easier to meet than you might think. Okay. So let's talk about you that are sitting in front of your computer today, the applicant types that we can expect to see that qualify this program. There's 4 listed here. I'm going to talk about a little bit about all of them, but the primary one that we deal with are the agricultural producers. There's some others there that might have some interest in this. Probably won't get in the weeds in any of these, but we'll talk briefly about agricultural producer groups, farmer and rancher cooperatives, and majority controlled producer based businesses. And we'll go through each one of these, particularly this first one. Next slide. So again, these are for-profit ag businesses that fall under this agricultural producer commodity. I think the key here is just in those first 2 bullets, you must produce the agricultural commodity that's involved that we're going to turn into a value-added profit. But you also have to be involved in the participation in labor, management, and field operations. The second bullet is really there for an entity where the members, or at least I don't know exactly how it rates, but at least the majority of members, I think, have to be involved in this production of the ag commodity and involved actively in the labor. I think what they're looking at this really isn't for passive investors to qualify for this. We need somebody that's got their hands in the dirt, so to speak, to qualify as an agricultural producer. You also see there harvesters like fishers and timber harvesters. I haven't seen any timber harvesters. I'm not exactly. I can't think of any examples of that, but we do get some. I don't know what that was. We do get some fishers. We've had folks that maybe catch fish in the wild fish out in the ocean and do like canning or something like that, add value to it that way. So I think we've had some folks that gathered mushrooms or something like that. We've seen a few different things like that, but that might be something that will work. But again, this is the majority of our applicants are going to come out of this agricultural producer group. Okay, next. And the ag producer group, this is a little unusual. I think the best way to present this is you kind of look on the right-hand column. There's some logos there that are examples of ones I think we've done projects with before. Or if we haven't, those would fall under Ag Producers Group. These are nonprofit membership organizations that represent and works on behalf of the ag producers, like we saw in the last slide. A majority of the applicants' membership must meet the definition of an agricultural producer. So everybody that makes up this ag producer group, not everybody, but the majority of the folks in that they have to be farmers or ag producers. The majority of the applicant's board of directors also must meet the definition of an agricultural producer. So if anybody out there, if that one's ringing anybody's bells, I think, and for the 2 next slides too, talk to us maybe afterwards or set up something with Melissa, reach out to Mike or I, so we can kind of see where you might fit here. Okay. All right, next slide. The farmer ranch co-ops. We've seen some of these. You can see right down there at the bottom some examples that you're probably familiar with. These are business owned and controlled by ag producers, again, organized as a cooperative by state law. Uh, Harvester cooperatives are not eligible, farmers and ranchers only. So I know we've done a lot of stuff with all these organizations. So um, they can apply for their own application. Okay. And this one I have not actually seen. There's probably a few out there, very rare, but these are majority controlled, producer based business ventures. These are where you have majority of the control and financial ownership. Again, our agricultural producers. It might be owned by multiple entities, some of which might not be ag producers. It might be an option for situations where the ag commodity is transferred to a different affiliated business for processing. It does require eligibility confirmation. And like those others, I think it's a good idea if anything outside that first group that we talked about, if you're one of these other kind of different applicants, let's talk about it beforehand. They set aside 10% of their funding for this type of venture. Okay. So applicants, if you are going to want to apply for this, you're going to want to kind of start checking these boxes. So all applicants currently produce and provide more than 50% of the raw commodity that will be used for the value-added product. You need to own the product from its raw commodity state through the production of the value-added product during the project. So let's just talk about um, let's talk about this. I'll get probably in more detail, but I think what we're saying there, if you're making ice cream, okay, and ice cream takes milk, the majority of that milk going into the ice cream is got to be produced by you, okay. On the other side of this, um, if you have a raw commodity, if we're talking about, let's say, beef, and for some reason it goes off to a feedlot to get finished or something else, and you somehow lose chain of ownership in that, even if you bought it back, it's got to be all the way through the process. So we don't run into that a lot, but be aware of that as you think about doing one of these. For value-added products with multiple ingredients, a producer doesn't have to produce the majority of all ingredients. So I think we talked about this one. Melissa loves the example of somebody that grows basil, but they're making pizza or something like that, and basil might be a small part of that pizza. But if they produce a majority of the basil that goes into the pizza, it's a little bit rare to see that extreme of an example, but that kind of gives you an idea what we're talking about there. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about products. You really got to think about these requirements. We need to show value added to the commodity through one of 5 methods, which we're going to go over. Show increase in customer base. If you're doing business to 10 wholesalers now and you want to grow it to 40, that's an increase in customer base. They might be individuals. If you want to be able to sell more to folks at farmers markets, that we just need to see your customer base grow, and the next one down, that should translate into an increase in revenue due to this value added product. So I think that I think as we kind of go through these, you'll kind of see how we group these, and it'll make more sense as we go along. Let's go to the next slide. So the different methods that we add value. I think when people think of this, the first thing they think of is that physical state change that we'll talk about. I always say strawberries into jam. It's more than that. It can be a lot more than that. So um, as you as you look at some of these that are after number one, um, one way you might beat this is just have an item that meets the definition, a value-added product that's locally produced, marketed, and distributed. There's one where we can use enhanced production methods, product segregation, and then there's renewable energy, which we'll talk about a little bit in these next slides. So let's go on to the first one, physical state change in the next slide. This is an irreversible process. You can't put the genie in the bottle after you do what you're going to do to this commodity. They make the distinction there that it's not a post-harvest process that primarily serves to preserve the commodity. The examples that we give here, this is similar to strawberries into jam, but milk into cheese, wool into clothing, livestock into packaged meat. So as you look at those and you kind of go back to the test here, you can't turn the cheese back into milk. You can't turn the clothing back into wool, and you can't take packaged meat and make it moo in the field. So that's we're going to see a lot of them like that, but we also see a lot of the next one here. Let's go to method 2 in the next slide. Well, here's another example of physical change. We have some nice pictures here. Apples, they're put in a bag. We go to, looks like some pie syrup, and the golden apple cherry sauce, organic. And I think these are probably all ours. I recognize at least 2 of those. Micah, are those all our projects? Do you recall all those, or I can't remember if we've gone over that before.
I don't recognize the apple cherry sauce one, but I know the others were, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't recognize that either. It does look good though.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go to the next one. This is what I was trying to go to. A lot of people do this. Food product marketed and distributed within 400 miles of origin or within the state of origin. These are locally produced foods. You must show evidence, just like we said in the beginning, of increasing in revenues versus a normal sales method. So you got to do something different. Um, and that's going to be all over the board. Maybe you're just expanding markets beyond maybe you only sold in Lewis County, and now you want to expand further into the throughout the state, something like that. I think that what's probably not here, if your big goal you present it as to sell your product worldwide, over internet sales, this may not be the one you want to pick. But any food or food product that customers will pay a premium for locally produced, where we see that a lot, don't we? Farmers markets, CSAs, those kinds of things. People want good locally grown food and they'll pay more for it. So this is they want to buy from people that they recognize the name, because it's in the Nisqually Valley or somewhere like that. So this one's been pretty popular. We see this one a lot. Let's go to the next slide.
Before we go,
Jeff,
can I? Oh, go ahead, Micah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to add to that locally sourced one. That can be really helpful for people looking to apply who maybe are not doing anything necessarily to their apples. They're not changing their state or making them into something else, but it still could be considered a value-added product by that local selling of the apple. That's how you add value to that apple, is by selling local. So in your application, you would just show that, because I'm selling this apple locally, it has a higher value than if I wasn't selling it locally. Yeah, that was it.
Super.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, that you need to show that people are willing to pay more because it's local than if it weren't local. And the second piece of this one is it has to be food. Every other category can be something that's not edible. This one has to be edible. No fresh flowers unless you're selling them to be eaten. No wool, those kind of things. All the other categories work except for this one.
All right. Thank you both. Enhanced production, we see this as well. Recognized set of production practices when growing the commodity. A different market for resulting product, increased value of the product over those produced via standard practices. The examples here: organic, free range, pasture raised, grass fed. I've seen a lot of these. It's, people will pay for that. It sounds a lot kind of like the last one, where we were talking about people will pay more for a local product. People will pay more for these things too, organic, free range, and there might be some others there, but that's kind of what we see. I've seen a lot of organic, meat raised and eggs and all that. So those have been pretty common projects. Okay.
Yeah, and that one too, you don't have to be turning your product into something else. It doesn't have to be tomatoes to salsa. It could just be the tomatoes. But yeah, like Jeff said, if they're organic tomatoes, then that's considered a value-added product, just being organic tomatoes.
And organic flowers. I mean, if there were such a thing, right? I mean, that could be a way that this would, I don't know if that exists, but if it
Yeah,
did.
or some type of enhanced
I think that,
production.
yeah, I think there is. There's, people have allergies and different things. I've heard of that anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
certified organic for Christmas trees for many
I
years.
heard that one time too.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but
No
maybe it's a good thing.
pesticides, no herbicides, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and this one's kind of weird. We don't see a lot of it, but the example, this is the physical segregation. The example they give you there is GMO versus non-GMO corn separation. Um, that might be one you see more in the Midwest, that example. But there could be things that apply here. If you have something, usually it's going to fit into something else. But if you have to kind of be involved with the program, and this is where you fit. Talk to us about this. So, if there's not a better example, you only have to meet one. So, my guess is they've got this there for some folks that don't qualify in the other areas, and this helps them fit. Okay. Do we have any more methods? Oh yes, renewable energy. Commodity used to generate renewable energy, no wind, solar, geothermal, or hydro energy sources. Energy can be sold. Examples: manure and the methane, a digester, corn into biodiesel. I don't know if I've ever seen a value-added project for this, primarily because we have our Renewable Energy for America program. Micah is our energy coordinator. Anything you want to speak to this just while we're here, Micah, that you'll be better versed than I will, even though I do work in it?
Yeah, so I think this would be if you, I'm thinking specifically like a dairy, if you are looking to expand and start turning that manure into energy, I guess you could apply for a value-added grant. I've not seen it, so I don't know exactly how that would look. But we also have our Renewable Energy for America program that has grant funding and guaranteed loans. And that's probably, yeah, most people who are looking for a project like this would probably fit better into REAP. But maybe there's opportunities to explore both. Yeah, I haven't had to dive too deep into it to understand this method fully, but if anybody wants to sometime, we definitely can.
Cool. And again, these are just to kind of recap those: physical state change. That's kind of the obvious one, but some of these other, the locally produced, marketed, distributed food, as Melissa points out, has to be food. Very good. Enhanced production methods. Those top three are probably our most common, and then the program or product segregation and renewable energy come in at the end there. So we can help you kind of figure out what it is, where you might fit, which one might be the best fit, and we're happy to do that. So
Yeah, and it doesn't.
got to meet one.
Yep, just have to meet one. You're not going to be in any kind of advantage if you meet multiple. So don't try to show that you meet multiple things. It's just more work for you. So, yep, just pick one, and yeah, doesn't make a difference which one you pick as long as you've got one that you fit into.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say in writing your narrative, remember which one you picked and really explain in incredible detail why you fit in that category. Just kind of go back to that over and over again as you write your narrative.
I agree. You got to sell it and have that in mind all the way through, so it follows. Even if you feel like you're repeating yourself anywhere, do it to emphasize, what the project is. Yep, what it's about. Okay. All right, Micah, I don't see the number of the slides down there. I think this is about where are we going to hand off here?
Okay. Yep, I'm good to pick up whenever. So yeah, so products requirements. We've definitely got to show, you have to explain to us in your proposal how you are adding value to this commodity. So as you're going through, you're always going to want to kind of think like, product A being just your raw commodity, like a tomato, product B being a organic tomato, and you need to show us in your write-up how that adds value, and that's big for eligibility and the grant writing. So then, yep, showing increase in customer base. We want to know that the purpose and the reason that you're applying for this grant is to increase customers, sell more product, generate more revenue, not to just, subsidize your current customer base or to reduce your prices or just make more profit and not increase customers. So it all needs to kind of line up together, the customer base, increase revenues. All right, so there's two different kinds of applications. We have the planning grants and then working capital. The planning grants is just for planning for future product implementation for your farm. And then the working capital is when you actually are making, selling, marketing the product. And there's a couple different kinds of working capital grants that we'll talk about in a second. The planning is to pay for a qualified third-party consultant to work with you, and there's different things that it could be. Most of the time we see feasibility studies, business plans, marketing plans, and those grant requests can be up to $50,000. And usually they're completed in 1 year time frame. And the purpose of it is to fund the planning activities for your value-added product and like future planning for it. Okay. And then working capital. So there's a simplified application, which is if the grant request is less than $50,000. Then you can apply for the simplified application, which is nice for people who don't have or aren't looking to get a feasibility study or business plan, because that is required if you are applying for more than 50,000, then you might have to have a feasibility study or business plan. So these are for smaller projects. Still got to show that increase in customer expansion and revenue. Everything else in the application is pretty much the same. I wouldn't really say it's less work to apply for a smaller grant. Melissa's kind of nodding her head, so I think I'm on the right track. I don't write them, I review them. But it's not necessarily less work to apply for a smaller amount. You just might not have to have those additional third-party studies and plans submitted. All right, so if we're applying for a grant that is over that 50,000 threshold, then there's two types of working capital grants. It would either need to be an emerging market, that's this one we're going to talk about now, which means that you have a product and you've been producing, selling, marketing it for less than 2 years. So you're newly in this business or newly with this product and selling it. If it is a new product like this, then you do have to have the feasibility study and business plan when you apply. So that's kind of the big difference between this and then market expansion. Thank you, Melissa. Which, if you're applying again for a grant over 50,000, and you've been producing and marketing this product for 2 years or longer, then you do not have to provide a feasibility study or business plan. Instead, you can submit a marketing plan that can be self-prepared, which is nice because feasibility studies, business plans, third-party prepared, that stuff costs money up front that you have to have, and sometimes it can take a while to find somebody to do that for you, and it could be kind of expensive. So there is an option here to where, as long as you've been selling the product for 2 years or more, you might not have to have those completed. But it may be a disservice to not have them done, even if you don't need to, because the applications, they're all scored. Kind of take a step back from the presentation for a sec, but all of these applications are scored nationwide for this grant. So if other people in other states or whatever are having these studies done, and if you're not, it might not make your application as strong as others. That's just a cautionary. I mean, we fund plenty of applications that don't have those studies done. They still score high enough. So not to scare people away too much, but just something to think about as you're trying to figure out where your product fits and what kind of application to apply for.
I was going to just add on to that too, Micah, if I could, just emphasize you must have been producing and marketing the value-added product for at least 2 years, not just like having grown what you're using to make it, that the value-added product that is going to be part of this project, you have to have been marketing it for 2 years or more. So just keep that in mind.
Yep. So you have a product, that's shovel ready and you're ready to expand. If my product was salsa and I've been making and selling my salsa for 5 years, that shows the grant reviewers that, you've got an established product, you have a customer base, you know what you're doing, and now I'm ready to ramp up and enter a new market. So that's the whole market expansion. I've been successful with my salsa, but now I'm really ready to take it to that next level. And that's the purpose of this grant, is really getting, helping the ag producers in our state get to that next level and expand their products and sales. Okay. All right. So there's back to the business plan, marketing plan, submission with your app or not. When we say a business plan, that does mean that it's been prepared by a qualified person, and it includes all these financial statements. It's pretty specific what the requirement is when it says business plan. There's some more flexibility with marketing plans. These are interchangeable sometimes in the submissions. So my recommendation would be whether you're working with Melissa or myself or Jeff, we're here to help figure out what you would need when you're submitting your applications. If there's any kind of outside plans or things that we need to have with it, we can definitely help you identify that. Okay, so planning grants, pretty straightforward. You're going to be working with the consultant, and it's not. We're probably not going to have too many issues with funds, um, use of your funds not being eligible. It's usually pretty straightforward. One consultant, one or two invoices, and then that's how you're using the funds. If we're doing a working capital grant, use of funds is vast. It could be many different things that you're currently paying for the operations of the value added product. So the big thing here is post harvest only for use of funds. So if I'm growing my tomatoes and making salsa, as soon as I pick that tomato, take it off the tree or off the tree, off the plant, that's when our use of funds becomes eligible. The clock like starts for eligibility. So post harvest only for all of our stuff, especially that working capital. And then let's see. Oh, good. Okay. Some examples of what we've been able to use VAPG funds for is processing costs, all of that labor after that tomato's been picked, the storage cost, the utilities to store the products, packaging, labels, supplies. You could purchase additional raw commodity if I need more tomatoes than what I'm currently producing. I can use VAPG funds to purchase more tomatoes, but I still have to be the one that's producing the majority of them. So that's where that 50% or more of the raw commodity is what you have to sell. So if I just have one tomato plant and it might be the most beautiful tomato plant ever, that's not going to be enough. Like just because I have one little tomato plant that's great doesn't mean that I probably have enough raw commodity to meet that 50% threshold for the project. So let's see. Yeah, bookkeeping, office supplies, utilities, all that could likely be eligible. But it does have to be directly tied to that value added product. So if I have blueberries also that I'm selling and I have employees that are working on my blueberries, though their labor expenses aren't going to be eligible because this is just for my tomatoes and my salsa. So if you have multiple things going on, which you likely do, multiple products, multiple raw commodities, make sure that when you're applying for the grant and thinking about what you would use this grant for, that you are just focused on the one or the value added product specific. And yeah, we'll probably have lots of questions on this, I imagine. But we're here to help as you're thinking about applying and putting together an application. A lot of what we do is pre-review this specific, these eligible expenses, because there is a lot of different things to it. So happy to get in the weeds on more one-on-one basis there. Okay, so this food safety is kind of a new thing that we're all still learning together about what's eligible and how this food safety stuff makes sense for projects. We're now allowed for a small percentage of your project funds to be used for food safety equipment. Again, it all has to be post-harvest, so nothing before you pick that tomato could be eligible for food safety, but it can be, let's see, a total of up to $13,000 could be allocated in your budget for food safety items. Yep, and that has to be related to the value-added product, not necessarily the commodity.
If I could interject there, Micah,
Yeah, please.
yeah, so it can be up to 13,000 for equipment, but then supplies could be, if you wanted to the whole rest of your project. And if most of your expenses are about food safety, it's eligible for that extra set aside funding. I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't
Hmm.
sure I heard that right.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so things that cannot be included in your value added grant is anything that is construction, real estate, equipment, vehicles. Can't do tractors. We can't fund roof replacement for your barn that the product is, housed in. We can't include anything related to growing, raising, harvesting the product. So nothing for your I saw that we have some fishermen on, so nothing related to the, boat or the act of catching the fish. But it would be, once that fish is caught, that's when the costs could be eligible. So nothing leading up to. And then let's see, nothing, yeah, no engineering, architectural design, and nothing with a conflict of interest. So we can't have you paying yourself, your family members, or I think just you and your family members or somebody, yeah, a business, maybe that your sister owns in marketing, for example. We wouldn't be able to include that as a eligible cost. If it's, free from your sister, that's great. But if you're trying to pay her to do work for the project, that wouldn't be eligible.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
see in the chat already a lot of people are asking about different pieces of equipment. And I think
Mm,
it's really important to just really understand that this is about those marketing expenses mostly, right? About finding new
mhm,
customers. And if something is going to be permanently attached to a building or improving a building, that
mhm,
doesn't qualify, except for that one food safety uh, exception there, which is
mhm.
pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I'd like to use to say to people too is if your proposal is, new tractor, new barn, all of this stuff that aren't eligible, that also would even if it wasn't or even if it were eligible, think of it from a reviewer's standpoint, like, well, this project is probably not very shovel ready. They're not ready to expand. They don't have the basic stuff figured out yet. They're still, needing more equipment and better facilities. So probably, yeah, not eligible, but also wouldn't look very good to reviewers if we can't show that we have things all already.
Yeah, and that's so true, Micah. Working capital. Try and fit things in there that are really um, this is about new business. You're trying to grow your business. You've got the product. You think that is going to. You've had some success with it. You've been growing it. In the case of the market expansion for more than 2 years, we want to see, and I think reviewers want to see things that kind of make sense to grow that. You've had to hire another person to get out there and market your project. You've had to maybe increase some advertising to reach markets that you haven't previously. So when we start to get kind of off course a little bit and trying to get in, you know, expenses that are probably more permanent fixed improvements to real estate, we start to kind of get away from what I think it was set up for. There may be some things that kind of fit in and can slide in there. But I really encourage you folks, when you're on the front end of this thing looking at this, think about those additional expenses that are going to be required to reach new markets and grow this revenue. I think they're going to
Yes.
score better when you don't get
Hmm.
kind of too off course.
Yep, yep. The reviewers are going to want to see that you've got this product, you've got a system that's working, your operations are good and solid, and now, ready to get to that next level. And I saw a comment, I saw it pop up, commercial kitchen. We get those questions all the time. Can we use this funds to, cover these commercial kitchen expenses? And the answer is always going to be no. However, if you're needing to rent out space in a commercial kitchen, that can be eligible. That rental space, if that's what you've done in the past. So again, back to, if that's what you've done in the past and you've been renting out a commercial kitchen, then that's fine for moving forward. But I think that's it there.
And I just want to add in there that people really do get, I understand that the greatest needs are equipment, but that's not what this grant is for. Let this grant pay for the things that USDA wants to pay for. And then when you get reimbursed for those expenses, then you can go buy the other things that you need. So what I did on my farm is I got a $250,000 grant to sell more eggs to more people in more places. And I used that money to pay for the labor to wash the eggs and for the cartons and for the people to deliver the eggs and the new website and things that reach new customers. And then I took the money that came back and I built a new processing facility. So, really don't get discouraged and don't give up. Think in terms of what this is wanting to fund and let it fund those things, and then be creative with funding the rest of your operation.
Yep, absolutely. And, the hope also is that, you've been able to sell more eggs. So you also have that additional revenue. So it's hopefully, from additional revenue, higher pricing, more customers, and the grant. Yeah, hopefully that'll make it so that you could do, those other things afterwards. Okay. Conflict of interest. Yep, kind of touched on this a little bit. We can't use funds to pay for expenses where there is a conflict of interest. And, if you have to ask, is this a conflict of interest? I liked how Melissa said that when we talked a couple days ago. It probably is. If you're asking, there's probably conflict there. But, there's only so much we can do. And it is up to the individual to be honest about it. We're not going to be able to go and ask every receipt that you give us if there was a relationship there or not. But just be aware that you don't usually want to lie to the federal government. So that's on everybody to be upfront about. Okay, next slide. Okay, matching funds. This is a fun one to talk about. So if you're looking to apply for, a $200,000 grant, that sounds great and all. Who wouldn't want $200,000 to put into their business? But it does have to be matched, a 1-to-1 match for every grant dollar. And what can be counted as match is more than just cash, which is why this program is as popular and successful as it is for our producers, because let's see, let me see what's on the slide. Can we go to the next slide? Does it talk about, perfect, yep. So eligible sources of matching funds. Cash definitely is one of those. It could also be a loan, a line of credit. But what we see most of the time is that value of your raw commodity counts as match. So back to me making salsa, the value of my tomatoes that I'm going to be growing and putting into my salsa, maybe it's $10,000 worth of tomatoes. And as long as I can document that price and verify, because we'll ask you to verify all of the sources of your matching funds. And if that for me is $10,000 worth of tomatoes, then that, that counts as my match. So I might not have to have the full cash amount So also family member in kind, back to if my sister has a marketing company and she's going to do all of this work for me free of cost. That could be considered in-kind labor. So whatever the cost would be if she's putting in $500 worth of work and writes up, we'll ask for a verification. She could, provide a letter saying I'm donating this much of my time into my sister's project. That counts to your match too. So we usually have multiple sources of matching funds in order to get to however much grant amount that you are requesting. And my time as well, or you as the owner, like your time into the project, your hours, your for the full project counts as match too. So we do end up seeing a handful of applications that only put a minimal amount of cash into their project, and can usually get the rest of that match from the value of their product, in kind, owner, and then yeah, so it's going to look different for every application. It really also depends on what your project is. That basil example, basil into pizza. The value of your basil's not going to be too much, but if you're applying for, a $200,000 working capital grant to expand your pizza, you're not going to be able to use the value of your raw commodity. You're going to have cash, line of credit, lots of in-kind donations, because yeah, so
Yeah, and if I
that's
could
usually when, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. On that applicant in-kind labor, things to think about on there too are anybody in your family that is, like in my example, washing the eggs, cartoning the eggs, standing at the farmer's market, selling, delivering, anything that a family member is doing post-harvest or in marketing and sales can be part of your match, which is pretty great. I mean, so don't get discouraged by I don't have $200,000 in the bank
Mhm.
between the commodity value of what you're growing and your own labor. We can get really close for almost everybody.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. Okay. Right. So the application for VAPG, it this is one of the very few grant programs out there that actually put cash dollars into the pockets of our applicants directly. And it's a big reward, but it is also it's work. This is not the most simplest of applications to apply for. You're not going to be able to just hop on the computer the day before the deadline and throw something in there. It will take planning. A lot of people do work with grant writers for this, but a lot of people don't. Just kind of depending on the comfort level of our ag producers, and maybe you've applied for grants before and you don't need the help for grant writer. But yes, that's my caution there as we go through this. Just keep in mind the reward at the end, which is receiving that grant and those dollars, and don't get scared about all this application content. So a big part of it, the meat and potatoes of your app is going to be your work plan and budget. And the more details you can provide, the more in the weeds that you get on this, is probably for the best when it comes to your budget. How did you come up with the dollar amount of ingredients that you're going to need to buy, and showing all the math and calculations, and is always a good call here. But again, everyone's applications, depending on the complexity of your current operations and your product, is going to kind of depend or result in how complicated the app will be. And we do have a system. So when you're applying for this grant, it is in an online portal now. It used to be we would email out a 20-page Word doc template that had to be filled out, and our submissions would sometimes be like 100 pages mailed in for someone's app, which that's not the case anymore. It's nice that it's in an online portal. There's some ease to applying now because of that, but a lot of this stuff here is still the same. It's just a little different how you submit. Okay. Anything you want to touch on here, Melissa?
Yeah, I would just say, looking at the contents of the application, the portal isn't open yet, which is, but there's still plenty that you can do. And really understanding what your project goals and tasks are, coming up with, like Micah said, a really detailed budget. This is a good place to go into a lot of detail, and really thinking hard about how to reach new customers in more places, buying more of your product. It needs to be the focus. That's what they really want to hear about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll say it probably 20 times more, but everything post-harvest. So we don't need or want to see anything in your budget about the cost of growing said tomatoes. It is just the salsa. So yeah. Okay, so the grant period, the projects can be up to 36 months. So if I'm putting together a grant proposal and I'm making my budget, it could probably even be less than 12 months, but I feel like that's usually the smallest that I see. 1 to 3 years is how long you would have to use the grant money. So as you're putting together and starting to think about a project, keep that in mind. And especially, it's kind of hard to talk about them because we have so many different commodities, right? And then you have to factor in the seasonality of when are you harvesting your commodity, how long does it take to turn that product into something else, and get it to the customer. So it can be up to 3 years total. Let's see. Yeah, we can only submit one grant application at a time, and you can receive multiple grants, but it just can't be at the same time. So, if you sell the salsa, but then you also have honey or another product after you finish this grant, you could come back and do for a different value added product. It just cannot be the same thing. So once I receive a value added grant for my salsa, I cannot come back and ask for another value added grant to continue with my salsa venture. The purpose of this is just supposed to be like a little injection into my venture, help get me off the ground and running with my salsa stuff. And then if you wanted to do something else later, you can. But
And if I
that's
could just interject there,
yeah, go ahead.
like Micah said, you get one grant per project. So if I had asked for $25,000 to sell more eggs to more people, that's it. I can't ask for more for selling the eggs again. So I recommend that people try to wait until you can ask for the full 200,000 or the amount that's really going to make a big difference, because once you've received a grant for that project, you don't get to ask for money for that again unless you are
Mhm.
selling into an entirely new geographic region. So if I said I've been selling into Whatcom County, now I'm going to sell to Eastern Washington eggs, that would work. But usually people are going to need to find another project. So salsa this
Mhm.
time, jams and jellies next time. Um, yeah. So and then also on the planning grant, it's 12 months, not 36 months. I
Mm.
don't know if I heard that.
Yep, yep, that's right. Thanks. Okay. So, all right, project timeline. If you are thinking of applying for this, I definitely recommend going in and getting your sam.gov registration. If you've ever worked in federal programs before, you probably heard that term. But if not, it's kind of a crappy process, to be honest. A lot of people end up getting, it takes time. It's a simple thing. It's just registering your business with sam.gov. And then they assign you a UEI, unique entity identifying number. And that's really all it is. However, it takes time. You have to submit things. I've never done it myself, but I have heard the woes of people. So my recommendation is just start it early and submit those help tickets. And yeah, that's that's my spiel there on sam.gov. Um, and then once you've got that, you'll be ready to go into the online portal and start working on your application. Once the application is done and complete and in, it'll come to our state staff like myself and Jeff to review the submission for eligibility. So we go in and we make sure that the applicant's eligible, the project, the project, the commodity, the budget, that everything's eligible. Once we've determined eligibility, the applications go up to the scoring panel and they are scored and competed nationwide for funding. So each year we get a budget for the value added producer grant. And once the applications are scored, it just starts in a list. And nationwide, we fund and work their way down until we run out of money. So it is a competitive grant. There's no guarantee that you will or will not receive one. And yeah, I think that's all I've got there. We just, in our state, we'll just get a email and they'll let us know who was funded and how many projects, and then we will reach out and work on all the rest of the government paperwork that we all love so much to get the projects going. So you'll work with like myself and Jeff up through the application, and then we will also be the ones working with you servicing the grant. So there's only that little bit of time where the application wouldn't be in our hands when it's up and being scored. But then you will eventually come back to us and we will work with you through the end. Okay, and I think that's all I would need to talk about on there.
Did you talk about how that it's taxable income and kind of what the
Oh,
project time period would be?
yeah, okay. So, a question that we do get a lot from folks typically around this time of year is that these grants, they are taxable. You will get a 1099 and that will be mailed to you. Um, and let's see, reporting, we will we will ask for semi-annual reporting on your project. And let's see, I think that's it there. Unless you had anything else you want to add. Okay. So when we're scoring these applications, that's a whole lot of fun to score VAPG apps, but we no longer do it in the state. Like I mentioned, it goes up to a national panel for review. So I don't always get in the weeds on this stuff anymore. But all of the information is here and available so that when you're going through and applying, you know what's going to be looked at. So I really recommend that you all read through what the scoring considerations are and make sure that you address every single item on here when you're filling out and putting your app together. This first spot here, nature of the project, that's up to 30 points. That's a huge chunk of the total. What is the total? Isn't it like 100 points? 30, 95 max, something like that. So yeah, these 30 points here, and there's multiple categories under nature of project that need to be addressed. So read through these with a fine-tooth comb, make sure that you're addressing everything that's being asked. Don't feel bad if you feel like you are repeating yourself throughout the application. Nothing wrong with that. Probably encouraged. So yeah, let's see. Qualifications of personnel. I will do a little pitch here. So this is up to 20 points. Just you telling us how qualified you are to manage, work on, and do this project. And do not sell yourself short. I think that's what I see the most of is it's kind of hard to talk about yourself and brag about yourself and how great you are. And it's one of those things where interviews are hard, right? Like it's hard to be put in that position. So don't sell yourself short. Really focus on, and it is not just yourself, I will say, it's the personnel who is going to be working with you on this grant. Maybe it is just you, but if you're going to be hiring people, what are their qualifications going to be? Are you going to have, because what I'll see sometimes people putting in, we have to hire somebody new for this project, and we're going to expect them to have at least 10 years in this field, so even if it's someone that you don't have hired yet or contracted with yet, don't be scared to still tell us what you're going to expect from them and what their qualifications are going to be. This is also applicable if you're gonna, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was just going to add, sorry to interrupt, but on this point, don't tell us you're just going to hire somebody to attend the farmers markets. Tell us what the qualifications of those people, of these unhired folks are going to be. Might be like a job description. What kind of qualifications are it? Don't just assume by putting the title in here, this is what they're going to do, that the scoring folks are going to know what that is. Because the thing is, if you just, keep it really super simple there and don't expand on it, this is super highly competitive. Somebody else might have the same exact project, but they talk a little bit more about this, and they get a higher score, and you might not get funded by 1 point or something like that. So just don't just check boxes, but expand on things so it's written for anyone. Like I said, we know what you're talking about here in Washington, but we're not scoring them anymore. At least we aren't we didn't last year, and I don't know that we will be this year. So this could be somebody that's looking at things all over the country and may have no clue what's going on in Washington State. So write it for someone that may not, don't make any assumptions about what they might, you think they might know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. That's a really good point. And also keep in mind, you guys are the experts. There's terminology even that what these words, these terms mean for your processing. And I'm not a farmer. I'm not a harvester. So nor are probably the people that are going to be scoring and reviewing these. So you might need to, for lack of a better term, dumb some things down a little bit and really explain your process and exactly what you're going to be doing for somebody that doesn't, there's no way for us to know all these different operations, all these different commodities, all these different products. So yeah, we need a lot of detail here. And when I say I've received apps that have sometimes been like 200 pages, that seems insane, but there's a lot of stuff to cover. So let's see here. Yeah, work plan and budget. We talked about that a bit. Matching funds commitments. If you say that you're going to provide $50,000 of cash match, we're going to need that verified at the time of application. So that's, via bank statement, and or yeah, letter from a bank, line of credit, depending on how you're going to meet your match. That'll show, or there'll be different requirements for how to verify that depending on what it is and where it's coming from. Same thing with kind of, if you're going to be hiring somebody to do work on like a business, a marketing company. So you're going to hire a marketing company. If you have a bid from them or a contract proposal, those are things that we also like to see submitted. That way we can have that for not only to verify the budget expense, but also qualifications and yeah, documentation to show exactly what they're going to be doing.
Hey, Micah, I
Yeah.
don't know, just going back to matching funds, cash commitments, I don't, did we, last year, was there verification required at the time of application, or I think we ended up doing that later, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So,
Good point.
but keep an eye on that. They might have swung back the other way. In the past, we've always had kind of had to have that. I will say this: if you put something down that you intend as match, you better have it at the time of application, because at some point, we would, if they didn't ask for it at the time of application, it may come shortly thereafter, depending on when they get through awards. So be 100% certain that you have it in the bank, or something like that. It's not, don't put things down as match that you think is going to come in from the sale of your car 6 months later or something like that, or no, you want to have it at the time of application.
Yep, absolutely. And for verifying the match of in-kind labor, so for that, it's not cash. So the way that you'll document that value is by showing some type of labor statistic for, farm managers. Average wage in Washington is this much, and I'm gonna spend 20 hours a week on this project. So, kind of simple math. And that's how I'm going to document my in-kind time as match. So, and that's for, yourself or family members, and even in your budget, like when we're, yeah, you can use kind of averages like that for your budget and for matching. But,
I think the important thing here, though, is that the more cash you commit, the higher your score. So you get that 0 to 5 points, 0 points if you don't have any cash. So all of my applications at least have, $100 as a cash match so that you get a couple points. But to get that full 5 points, you have to contribute the whole thing as cash, which isn't possible for most people. But just to understand that, there are ways to boost your points with matching cash.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can match with cash, that's the simplest way to apply. You get the most amount of points. It's also the simplest way on the back end if you are awarded. And because the reimbursements and the reporting for this is a whole nother thing to talk about. So if we just have cash as the match, it's going to be easier afterwards as well. So keep that in mind. The more cash you can do, the better. But there are ways where, if you don't have that accessible, yeah, there's other ways to get there too. But let's see, priority points. As far as I know, this is staying the same. Priorities are changing in a lot of our other programs, but if you are a beginning farmer, rancher, there's point opportunity there. And the beginning farmer means within 10 years, I believe. Yep. So as long as you have been doing so for less than 10 years, then we'll be able to award those points. Then there's socially disadvantaged, veteran, That'll be, yeah, like a self-certification, like you'll certify in the app if you meet those requirements. If you're a small, medium family farm, then you can be awarded the points. Mid-tier project, co-op producer group. I'm not that familiar with those. Most of the time, if there's priority points to be awarded, it'll be one of those first ones. And let's see. Yeah, there's going to be a new application prepared cost. So I'll just quickly mention that for ineligible expenses, we cannot have the cost of you to prepare or pay someone to prepare the grant in your budget. So we can't use grant funds that you'll receive to pay for preparing your application. So those should be upfront costs or costs that are outside of this value added product budget. So it's like you can hire someone, you just can't use grant funds to pay them for that.
So I did have a time allotted for questions for our rural development
Awesome.
staff, but given that we're kind of going over, I was thinking we'd take a 5 minute break and come back to those later, if that's okay, Micah and Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, works with me.
Yeah.
Yep,
So what
are we going to follow them up after the panel?
I think so, if that's okay. I feel like as many of the questions that are coming in are going to be addressed as we continue, or would you prefer to take a time for questions for the two of you right away?
I'm I'm good whenever.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good with whatever makes sense and works
Whatever
best.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll save them till the end then. Hopefully, some of these questions, I've been trying to keep up with the questions in the chat, and I do apologize that I haven't answered every single one. Some have been coming in too fast for me to keep track of that, as well as the screen, and others I feel like we're going to be answering as we progress. So, want to save those for later. So I'm not ignoring you. We'll come back to all of those. Up on the screen are the agency contacts in rural development for the different areas. Um, this will be made available to you later as well if you don't have a pen and paper to write this down. But our rural development staff is absolutely fabulous. They are wonderful resources. They're wonderful people, as I'm sure you can see right now. They're here to help us. They are very much wanting you all to get funded, and they want you to have good applications so you can get funded. So we're going to take a 5 minute break. When we come back from the break, we'll have a panel of three farmers in Washington who have received value-added producer grants, and they're going to talk about their projects, their process, and what it's meant for them. And then after that, I will be we'll be moving from the regulatory side from rural development to I'll be giving you information on how best to prepare an application and prepare to apply. So stick around. We'll be back at 10:25. Yes, so we're back. So I am really excited to be able to have a panel of three farmers who are here today who are going to share their stories about applying for a value-added producer grant and now using those grant funds and how that has gone for them. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen so that you'll see their bright shining faces when they talk. Okay. So, yeah, let's start with Janine. Janine, go ahead and unmute yourself and share your screen. And I would love for you to tell everyone about your farming operation. How long have you been farming? What are you farming? And then tell us about the grant that you received and what you're using those funds for, if you're here.
Okay.
Hey, there she is.
Hey,
It's so nice to see you.
good to see you. So good to see so many people here. Good turnout. I can't share my screen. You have to share me, right?
No, you're nice and big on everybody's screens right now because you're talking.
Amazing. Okay. Well, hello. Hello. My name is Janine Bradwin. I have been farming with my husband, Colin Barraclough, at Kersop Farm since 1996. We've been at this a while. We started really small and have grown to be a very healthy medium size. I would not say we're large, but we're definitely not small. Right now, what we're doing is about somewhere between 10 and 20 acres of row crop vegetables and 10,000 broiler chickens every year. We have 20 to 30 acres of grain crops happening. But wait, there's more. There's also a flock of sheep for meat and fiber. Sometimes we raise some pigs. We've got hay, some flowers. We're trying to whittle it down a little bit because it's too many things. But that's how it is for now. Let's see. Our farm is located in Rochester, Washington. We're about halfway between Seattle and Portland. We sell more than half of our income comes from selling at 2 year-round farmers markets in Seattle, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. We also sell through our local food hub and another food hub and a little bit of like direct wholesale. So those are the ways that we're getting income at the farm. Let's see, we used to run a CSA, and that's one of the things that I'm really proud of successfully whittling away. We don't do that anymore. I kind of miss it for sentimental reasons, but it was a really great choice for our business and our life. About this VAPG grant, it's one of my favorite things in the world. I hope everyone gets one and then gets another one and then gets another one. I think it's just the most wonderful thing. I love it. It did take me a while to get it. Like, I wanted it 10 years ago, but I didn't understand it. I wanted equipment. And I was like, oh, it can't pay for equipment? Well, never mind. Moving on. I'm so busy. I just have to keep working. And then later, I saw a presentation like this that Melissa was giving. And I was like, oh, no, that is for me. Okay. And then even then I wanted it, and I started preparing the application, and then I was like, oop, nope, too hard, too much, can't do it. And then the next year I was really ready. And so my process for applying was that it took me like 6 months of setting aside 1 or 2 hours every week to chip away at it. And for me, that chipping away was a lot of like getting my numbers in order to start with. You have to know how many pounds of your product, how many units you're producing, what's the hours and cost of your labor, what's the price, how many customers do you have? Like, there was just a lot of specific information, 2 or 3 different ways, and that I wasn't already like super great at keeping records. So it took me a while, but it's worth doing. I'm really encouraging everyone to do it. Like, if you're a little bit like me and you don't love counting and tending to your office, well, it's worth it. It's worth tending to your office to get $250,000. That's what I think. So that is the grant that we got, is $250,000 for broiler chickens. And what else? Oh, we're halfway through it. I think we wrote it for 3 years in case we needed that long to go through the funding. But I'm pretty sure we're going to get it done in 2 years because everything is expensive, especially labor. This year we got to order a 2-year supply of supplies, bags and boxes and labels for the chicken, which was just amazing. Like, I knew it was going to happen. We wrote it into the plan, but it's so great to know that you have the money to buy things and to not be, I don't know, the whole, like almost every of the 30 years I've been farming have been, oh, I need to buy something. I don't quite have enough money. I'm going to have to buy 10 things. I really need 20 things, but I can only buy 10 because I don't have the cash flow. And then it's very frustrating. So now with the VAPG, that has changed to I'm free to shop for and get the best price per unit on all these supplies because I can turn around and claim a reimbursement through the grant almost right away. You can work out the timing. And Melissa or someone like Melissa will help you work this out. So again, if it seems a little bit daunting, get some help to do it because it's worth the effort. Let's see. Challenges. I think I already addressed that. Challenges for me are just like not being very interested in counting. So now that I've gotten over that with some support. Let's see. And through the process of applying for this grant, receiving the grant, working with it, I have actually become more interested in counting, and I'm doing a better job with my record keeping and having access to all of these numbers and being tracking production and expenses all the time. It's had a really positive impact on how I'm running my business as a whole. So there's this VAPG grant, and the process around it is worth more than just what it is. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. I love it. Everyone should do it.
Can you give us an example of some of the things that you are getting reimbursed for?
Oh yeah. Well, the big one that was so exciting for me was buying a 2-year supply of bags and boxes. It's stacked up in one of my barns, and I don't have to go shopping for that again. So that's amazing. Other things, we've used it to pay for the labor. We process the chickens here at the farm. So I have a crew of anywhere between 5 and 8 people working once a week for 27 weeks of the year. And so I get to run a payroll report and submit that. And then all of that money comes back to the farm, and we can use it for other things. We can use it for irrigation equipment. We can use it for whatever we want. It doesn't matter. It's ours after that. So, what other things? Things for the farmers market, those 2 year-round farmers markets we sell at, we upgraded our tents and tables and signage and things. So, again, things like that, that in the past we're like, well, it would be nice to have nicer things, but the things we have that are kind of broken are fine and we don't have any money. So let's just keep duct taping everything together. And farmers market labor for salespeople is also part of this. In our case, because we sell half vegetables and half chicken at the farmers market, we just have an equation for calculating that. And again, somebody can help you with that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grayson, I'd love to hear from you next.
Sure. Hi, folks. Grayson coming from Eatonville, Washington. I'm kind of like equidistant between Olympia and Tacoma. I like to say if you've like driven to Mount Rainier National Park, you probably stopped in Eatonville and went to the bathroom. Maybe you'll stay for more. There's stuff to do. But yeah, I run a farm, Pink Moon Farm. The whole property is about 24 acres. I'd say about 15 of that is in pasture, and then kind of 3 acres plus, so we're a pretty small farm, is in vegetables. I applied for a VAPG grant with Melissa helping me out as the grant writer. Um, what was that? I guess that's 2 years ago now because coming into my third and final year here. But yeah, we applied for the full amount, that 250K over those 3 years, to focus on 3 specific vegetables. And the value add of that being that they are being marketed locally, so within 100 miles of the farm. So I decided to focus on tomatoes, kale, and carrots. Can yak about the reasons why I chose those, but really it's because the short of it is that I know we can grow a lot of them, and I know people will buy them, and I know kind of knew that different customers that we already have buy certain amounts of them, I guess. Not to kind of speak in a puzzle, but anyway, we are pretty similar to Kirsop in that we do most of our sales through farmers markets. Probably I would guess around 60, maybe up to 70 sometimes. And then the remainder of that is wholesale, so food hubs, restaurants, that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I would say the VAPG definitely, I would echo pretty much everything Jeannie already said, just in terms of how it's really supported our farm, supported me like expanding our farm. Like I often kind of joked we were like a bit of a toddler, both in time, because we started this farm in 20. I would say we really started doing business in 2019. I'd been out here prior to that and had managed other people's farms and been in farming in Western Washington for 10 years or so before that. But anywho, I feel like this grant really kind of helped us go from toddler stage to like grade school age as a business, just in terms of market reach, clean, professional, all kind of the like tight and right adjectives that kind of have helped us grow as a business and like helped me not be doing everything all the time. So it's helped us hire some more folks. It's helped us clean up a lot of our packaging. Like we have little cool custom twist ties now and things like that. Revamped our website. I would say just in terms of, I noticed there was a question about sort of what things folks have used the grant to reimburse, and I would echo a lot of what Jeannie already said just around employees. I mean, labor is usually is always our highest expense, and is always kind of growing, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that is our highest expense. But outside of that, I would say being able to pay all of our market fees out has been really helpful. Kind of, again, having an equation because we don't just sell those three products, we sell other things, but having an equation that accounts for a lot of our overhead. So our insurance, hiring a really great bookkeeper has been worth every penny, having someone to help with those numbers, but also a thought partner in thinking through sort of the vision and direction of the business. Um, yeah, I would again really encourage you to apply for it. It's been, yeah, super, super helpful. It's been really helpful to have it over 3 years. I feel like I've seen our farm improve and change, and you know, plenty of things can happen in 3 years. So it's nice to have some time stretch on it too. Um, but yeah, I would also just echo again that collecting data about your farm and your business is really important and really helpful. And if you're not already doing that, I would start doing it now, because it's really helpful for grants like this. So yeah, happy to add more and answer questions, but I'm going to mute myself for now.
Yeah, so now let's hear from Dorcas. Dorcas is she is on her third value-added producer grant, so I'm super excited for you all to hear from her. Is she here, Emily?
She's on. I'm
I'm
seeing her. Oh, there she is.
There she is. Go ahead,
Can you
Dorcas.
hear me?
We can hear you. Like we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh,
Oh, you're cutting out.
so
Your connection isn't great.
okay, can you hear me? I can hear you. Well, let me do something here, probably. Um, uh, I don't know. I can hear everyone.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. We see you now. Oh, but your
Yeah.
network
Can
bandwidth
everybody
is
hear me
low.
now?
We can.
You can hear now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Dr. Siam for the City Farm. Well, my story goes back to 2015. I'm not going to go that far. I had nothing in my hands when I went to attend a class like this. I was a farmer, of course, but I had no way to expand or to expand in my adventure. So I went to a class like this and I was able to meet Melissa, Jeff Waltz, and I was continually taking classes. And the grant really has really helped me a lot. I can attest more than to be grateful. I leased the land all this time. In 2015, I think I got the 50,000 making cattle chips, and it was very successful. I worked with Melissa Mola and the team that were there to help me to go through the process of application, and it was very, very good because I relied on them to guide me through it, and it worth every penny that I did on that. That was the process of, doing application. Well, this grant has really given me a platform where I have expanded my products. I started with the 50,000 and I went back again and I got 250,000, and that really jump started us. We just growing beans. I grow different kinds of beans. And from there, we worked through it. There were so many challenges that time when I was doing the beans. And one time my crops were not doing well because I was renting the land and I was leasing from somebody. They cut off the water and my beans died. That was my second grant. But I went ahead and replanted and I had harvested enough my commodity to carry me throughout my second grant. So, of course, there's challenges when you go through this process. Strategies was very important. I work with other people and I hired people to work with us to help us to understand this, which was really helpful. So the specific challenge, like I just said, when I was growing the beans, it was really challenging, my second grant. And then I didn't give up. I went back again to take more classes with the University Extension for processing, analysis, everything. I was putting myself in the plateau to make sure that all these requirements, documents that are needed to qualify, I have them. I registered my business. I had a business plan done, and specifically for those value-added crops. And I work with that. I will check with Melissa Mola and the team at WZA and some people that were writing business plans. I did all that. So I was able to get through it. So, and then we went back again and applied for the pesto, fava bean pesto, because I grow all these different kinds of beans. So we developed that project. We were selling them at the farmer's market and it did great. So I went back and applied for the pesto and I got it. And I'm telling you, I'm so grateful and thankful at this moment that right now we're able to, all these years I was doing this, the strategy was that, my strategy was that every penny I will keep saving because I wanted to purchase the land for us. I was renting all these years. So 2024 came as a blessing. We were able to obtain the land, the farm in Peninsula. And we will be moving there to farm there to grow more crops so that we can show that, yes, these grants really help us to get there. So I got my third grant. Now that I'm operating, is going to end, I think next year, 2026. But every penny of it, we designated that money for people to work with us and employees to sell the pesto at the farmers market, wholesaling to the food hubs and restaurants. And we give them to test them in their sandwiches, in their pasta. I mean, I just do that to give it to them. And then the feedback is great because people come and buy from us after they taste it from there. So that was the most strategy working through this, working through the grant. Of course, the paperwork is daunting. That's not, I'm telling you, if I didn't have Melissa and Jeff and other team, I would have been just like overwhelmed. But they are there to say, okay, give you homework, you take their classes, they will offer the classes. I will go there and take notes and come back and then work with my kids to say, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, and we get info and we get it back. We start in advance. Like today, after this class, I just go to do my homework. I started to collect every document they need and go through the process. Do I qualify with this one? How did this project look? We put it together and then we send it over there. And then they'll say, okay, now with this you can apply, and then work through the process to do that. So it has really helped me to buy supplies, to be able to have employees that specifically will be selling my pesto at the farmers market. Of course, we have other things, but like she said, the calculations, you just calculate based on that products which is funded, and you specifically focus that money in there and try to push the sales as much as you can, because pushing the sales with your expenses covered, at least you will have a future cash flow. That's the purpose of my strategy, that I'll have a cash flow when I don't have a grant anymore. I can sustain it. So that's where we are right now. We're able to move to the farm through these 3 grants that have really leverage. But the one thing I want to assure everyone, I don't work, I don't get paid. My strategy was to push until I get the land. Then hopefully after that, I'll get paid myself. I put every hour, non-sleep, working more than I can even capacitate myself. So now I am at the farm. That's the result. That's the achievement. This grants, they have helped me to get there. I had nothing from the beginning. The hours I put in there as in kind is beyond requirements. But what was my goal? To make sure we're going to have something in the future. So that's how this grant has really supported us. And I want to thank everyone who's here. I'm encouraging you. It's daunting at first, but if you start with a small amount, $20,000, $50,000, you start from there, you get confidence at the end. And you said, oh yeah, it worked. And then you can see the future of it. I want to thank everyone. If there's any other questions, but this has really helped me to be where I am right now.
Yeah, thank you, Dorcas. If you have a question you'd like to address to the farmer panel, go ahead and raise your hand, or if you don't know how to do that, you can put something in the chat and Emily will see that. I hope what you hear in all these stories is that the application process is not simple. It's not something you do one evening. It's something you have to put a lot of effort into, but that effort is worth it in the end. That all 3 of these farmers are growing their farms from at least 2 of them, very small operations. Janine and her husband had been going for a while, but all 3 of them were able to go up a step in terms of sustainability, profitability, and their ability to stay doing the thing that they love. In Dorcas's case, I hope you heard that she started leasing a small plot and a community farm to now she owns her own land and acreage, and that she is farming with her children and really growing something for the next generation to continue on. I love all 3 of these stories. Any questions that anyone has for our farmer panel? And if questions come up later and they're still around, we will definitely loop back to them, and they are always welcome to interject with me on my part of the presentation on anything that they think of that they think would be really helpful for farmers.
I saw a couple in the chat.
Okay.
I'll read off while I wait for hands raised. And they may be for the panelists or for you, whoever can best answer. So the first one I see is, how do I count customers from farmers markets? Great question.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I think, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Is you can look at if you use a square or those kind of a system, you can look for how many unique customers you have, but you can also just guesstimate. What would you say, panelists?
I think a square is the best thing. How I record my transaction, I categorize my pesto sales there. At the end of the year, I can summarize that. Okay, I sold how many? 1,200 packets of pesto, and that's the number I get. And Square is really great to do that. Even QuickBook can record those transactions. You categorize your items that you sell at the farmers market. And then even the wholesale is the same way. The wheat food hub are the same way. People order items and they're all categorized. Then at the end of the year, I just get the report, and the report will tell me this, even if sometimes they are not categorized, but you know the number that is under the farm, and these are the items sold in the farm. Cabbage is a different price than, like a carrot. You kind of just like, okay, the pestos, they are $10. You go there and analyze in that category, and you can see it that way. So that's, for me, that's how we track some of these things for the future applications. That's how I tracked my sales for the beans when we're doing it. And then it led me to pesto. Now we are doing tracking on that. That's going to lead me to my other product that I'm going to, then that I sold this for that amount. Even the new product that I develop now, I'm tracking that number, so that when I'm going to apply, so I'm going to take that number and say, this is how much I sold for 2 years in this particular beans, and this is what the product I did out of it. And that's kind of like a basic way to do it. Thank you so much.
Grayson, how do you track how many farmers market customers you have?
Similar, use Square. I think when I really need to dig into it, which I really only kind of need to for things like this, I would take we do most of our Square or sales in Square because of the urban animal that we're selling to, but I would take, you get the printout depending on the market association of what your actual total sales were when you report those. Just derive the number in cash, and then I think I took the average sale in Square, and that lump sum of cash kind of divided it by what the average sale was, because for us, most folks are using Square, so it's pretty representative. Might be kind of funkier. I mean, you could get one of those little tally things. We use those sometimes in the wash pack anyway. Those little like crowd counter things are pretty handy, but yeah.
Awesome. Janine, do you have anything to add?
Well, it was just that it was really challenging. I don't know. And also ours was really challenging because it was for only the chicken, not the vegetables. And we use Square at the farmer's market, but we don't use it per item. We're just like running a total in our head, and then that's what goes in the Square. But we do keep these record sheets for the frozen meat specifically. That is how many are getting put in a cooler to go to market, how many come back. That's how many got sold, the difference. So we have all these records of that. And that was part of what I spent those hours every week doing, is putting those into some kind of a spreadsheet, looking at them, and then saying, okay, well, most of our customers are buying a whole chicken, or they're buying 2 or 3 packages of chicken. Okay, here's the value. And then, basically just making up an equation that makes sense. So it's part of the overwhelming, daunting part of the process, but go ahead and like flail away at it and come up with something.
Yeah. Yeah. So keeping track of numbers, all kinds of numbers, right? Really taking the business of your farm seriously is really key toward a good VAPG application as well as a good VAPG implementation. Yeah, as farmers, it's really fun to play with the animals and play in the field, and you kind of forget that there's numbers behind everything you do, and those numbers are really important. Yeah. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to move on with the application process, but keep definitely asking questions in the chat. And if there are things that come up that our panelists want to address, feel free to jump in. Same thing for rural development staff. So the application process. So you've heard about the regulatory part and all of the pieces that you need, and you've heard the farmer stories. What I really want to share with you is what can you be doing now to craft a really good VAPG application. So the first thing you need to do is you need to determine what value-added product you want to apply for. So what are you already growing? That's the best place to start. Everyone thinks value added and they're like, oh, well, I grow tomatoes, so I could start doing salsa. But instead, let's start with the tomatoes. Can you sell more tomatoes to more people and more places? That's going to be a great application to start with. And then, after you've got the salsa going, maybe come back to that for your next application. Can you produce and sell more of it? So again, with the tomatoes, do you have the land and space to produce more? And do you have people who want to buy more from you? It doesn't do a lot of good if you just grow a bunch more kale and you don't have anywhere to sell it. Or if you say, yes, I'm going to grow 10,000 more pounds of kale, but you don't have any land to do that. So you really need to think hard on what do you do? What can you sell more of? What can you produce more of? And then I really like to see people narrow the scope of their application. You can ask for funding for everything. You can say, I grow these 100 different vegetables and chickens and beef and pork, and you can put all that in your application. The problem with that is because you've mentioned all those things, even if you don't sell the 4 different varieties of jerky that you said in your application, you now cannot come back and do another VAPG. If you are funded for that, you can't come back and ask for another VAPG for anything that you mentioned in there. It was part of the previous project. So the most heartbreaking thing for me is when I see people who have had worked with someone and did an application like that, and they talk about, oh, we're going to do vanilla yogurt and strawberry and blueberry and peach and raspberry, and they only ever do vanilla. Well, now we can't write a VAPG for the other flavors because they already mentioned it. So narrow your ask. It also makes the application easier to write. If you're talking about 100 different kinds of vegetables, you need to determine how many pounds of each of those vegetables you have grown in the past and will grow in the future, the commodity value of each of those, and how much you're going to sell in the past and the future. And then you have to track all of that. If we can narrow it to the smallest ask, the smallest number of products that gets you to that $200,000 ask, that's going to make a better application and give you lots of room for future applications. I hope you heard that with all 3 of our panelists, they're already thinking about their next one. For Janine and Grayson, their second one. For Dorcas, her fourth one. She's already planning that fourth one. So narrowing it gives you those options. And what value added methodology should you use? You don't get points for meeting all or even more than one. Pick one. Pick the one that best fits your operation of how you are adding value to that commodity and able to sell it for more money than the commodity price. And then craft your whole application around answering the story of how that value that you're adding adds more to it and makes it so that you can sell to more people in more places. Okay. Yeah, so again, remember that you can receive back-to-back VAPG applications. You can't have them at the same time, but once you finish one, you can come back and ask for a second one. So in my case, I did soup stock and then bagged compost and then eggs. I should have started with the eggs. Starting with the eggs would have been the much better place to start because that was my primary business, but I didn't understand the process that well. And over 9 years, I learned to understand it a whole lot better. And uh, Definitely would push people that direction. Each of your applications must be substantially different than previous applications in terms of the products or markets. And you can't just say, oh, I'm selling lots of eggs. I want to keep selling eggs. That's not enough. It's got to be something that's really substantially different from a previous one. So you want to think about that before you write your very first application so that you're planning to allow yourself to apply and receive funding more than once. Okay, so step 2, choose your value-added methodology. So the easiest one, change in physical state. You go from an apple to applesauce, tomatoes to salsa, live cow to beef, right? That's the easiest. Everybody understands that. That makes the most sense to anybody when they think about value added. It's not the only method, though. Locally produced food product is the second category that I would suggest you look at if you're not changing the state. So, you just sell apples. Sell more apples within the Washington state or within 400 miles of your farm location And you have added value because we know that people in Washington will pay more for a Washington apple than for an apple grown somewhere else. So if you're doing food of any kind, then you qualify for value added in that category if you're selling it locally. If you're just selling it in the commodity market, you probably aren't part of this presentation anyway. But if you are selling, whether it's to a farmer's market, a farm stand, a food hub, a grocery store, that's the category that would fit for you. Enhanced production methods, those organic, free range, pasture raised, anything that you can point to that says people will pay more because I raise it with these enhanced methods is a good one. Physical segregation, renewable energy. I've never seen an application with those, so I wouldn't even worry about those, but they are eligible options if you wanted to. So pick one. So your second step is to pick one method, and you're going to write everything revolving around why that method increases value, adds value to your product. Okay. Oh, I forgot. Well, going back over these again, that change in physical state. So it's not the same as it was before. It can never go back to a whole apple, a live animal, milk if it becomes cheese. Locally produced, again, I'm sorry, I didn't really preview my own slides here, that you're selling it within 400 miles of your farm, and people will pay extra because of that. And then the enhanced organic, free range, etc. Okay, step 3, understand your current numbers. I hope you heard from the farmer panelists that they really needed to go back and make sure they understood what their numbers were. And I always say the last 3 years. So how many, whatever measure, pounds, ounces, whatever the measure is for the last 3 years, did you grow? Showing it in a chart over those last 3 years. And how much more can you produce in the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 years? What have your sales been? What were your numbers? You need to understand go back into your records and make sure you have good records showing what your sales have been, and now show what your sales can be selling into new markets, finding new customers. What rate of growth can you anticipate? And you want to make sure that you're being realistic. If the reviewers see an application that says, well, we sold 100 pounds of apples last year, but once we get this money, we're going to sell 50,000 pounds of apples. They're probably not going to think that's realistic. So you want to look at this as like, whether I get the grant money or not, I think I could reach these new customers, sell more product, and certainly with the VAPG funds, that's going to be a whole lot easier and more sustainable for me to get there. Think about who your current customers are. I love that the panelists talked about how to determine the number of farmers market customers you have. That's certainly a lot more challenging than knowing how many grocery stores you sell to, or how many people buy from you off the food hub, or how many people come to your farm stand. You really need to have some way of understanding how many customers you've had in the past, and who do you want to target in the future? How many more customers in each of those categories can you get? How will you reach those customers? Who do you think those customers are? If you have a waiting list, that's absolutely fantastic. We're going to talk about all of those things in your application to show the reviewers that you understand that there are new markets out there that avail for your product, and you want to go reach those, and you have an understanding of how to do that. Okay. All of these things are things that you should be doing now before the application period even opens up. I mean, there's a lot of work that can be done before it opens up, so don't be discouraged that it's not open yet. Step 4, and maybe this should have been step 1, make sure that your business licenses are all current. Do you have all the appropriate business licenses to sell in Washington State? Are you employing people legally? Really think hard about making sure that you are in full compliance with IRS regulations for employing people within the state of Washington. If you're not, then don't apply. It's just that simple. I know farmers are very creative people and really want to come up with innovative and interesting ways of managing the farm, but you need to remember first and foremost that it is a business, and you don't want to lose your home because of a business decision that you made that doesn't comply with federal and state regulations. we don't want to argue about whether those requirements are the right requirements or not. They just are. And so, in order to apply for this, you want to make sure that everyone you're employing legally and you're paying all the appropriate taxes on them. Are you a U.S. citizen or are you residing in the U.S. legally? You will be asked that in the application. If you can't answer no to that, please don't apply. Just don't. But most people, I mean, that should be fine. But if you aren't, don't apply. Do you have the authority to act on behalf of your organization? I did have one where the applicant thought that she had the legal authority to, but she really didn't because of issues with inheritance and siblings and that whole thing. So make sure that you do have the authority to sign on the behalf of your organization before you apply. Are you current on your IRS tax filings? That doesn't include, the year that's about to end. But if you're not, get that taken care of first. Do you have any IRS judgments against you? Get those taken care of first. You're asking for federal funds, so you're going to need to make sure you're fully operating within state and federal law. Okay. Business and marketing plan. Do you have a current business plan? If you don't have a current business plan, I would encourage you to go create one, take a class. Oh, I'm sorry, there is not an upcoming NABC business plan course currently. Sorry, that's an old slide. But there are several. There are several available, and we can help you find one if you need a class to do that. The USDA has a business plan template, which is a great place to start because if you're applying for a USDA program using their template, win-win, you're going to be answering all the questions that they want to see. A business plan is not a requirement of most of the different types of value-added producer grants, but it sure does help. All those things that you're putting into your business plan are going to answer the questions that come up in the application. For my own farm, once I had a business plan, grants were a whole lot easier to apply for. It was a lot of copy paste, right? I'd see an opportunity and it's like, oh, I can answer. I've already written that language for myself on who I am and why I do what I do. And many of you probably have that in marketing material or on your website, but to put it into a written document or a Word document on your computer that you can modify whenever you need to is a wonderful resource to have. It feels like an unnecessary piece of farming, but it's really not in terms of growing your business. A marketing plan. A marketing plan is not a requirement for the under $50,000 grant. However, you're going to have to answer all of the questions in the application that would be found in a marketing plan. So put a marketing plan together. And for those who turn in their evaluation form from this webinar, we will send you a marketing plan template. So there's your encouragement to fill out that evaluation form that helps us stay funded to do these kinds of things. If this is a new product for you, you have to have a feasibility study produced by a qualified third-party professional. If you are a professional who does feasibility studies for a living, you cannot write the feasibility study for your own farm. It has to be done by a third-party qualified professional. It's just unfortunate. So in the past, I've really encouraged people to wait and apply for working capital grants. However, I'm going to change that this year and say it's not a bad idea to go for a planning grant to get that business plan, marketing plan, and feasibility study created. And then with those documents in hand, come back the following year for a working capital grant. I'm becoming more and more convinced that that makes a much healthier application and one that outside reviewers who are even outside the farming community are going to see much more favorably. So think about that if you're doing that. But if you've been producing something for at least 2 years, you are eligible to do a working capital grant of up to $200,000. Okay. So then after that, you can start working on your application. Again, it's not open yet. That is the website where it will open. Emily, if you don't mind putting that in the chat, you can't get into the portal yet, but still, there's a lot that you can do right now. Okay. So the things that you're going to need in order to complete your application, you're going to need to put together a project budget. You're going to need to show and explain how you're going to spend all the federal dollars and all the matching dollars. So for a $200,000 grant, that's a $400,000 project. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, I just couldn't possibly spend that much money. You would be surprised that we can spend that much money when we have some outside assistance. That's over a 3-year period. And the value, the commodity value of the crops that you're growing, crops, but we say crops, we say farmers, but we really mean farmers, ranchers, fishers, and harvesters. That's just a lot for me to have to say over and over again. So please forgive me if I just say farmers and I mean everybody who's an agricultural producer. So you need to put together a solid budget. What are you going to spend their money on, and what are you going to spend your money, time, and commodity? Your commodity, this is this great federal math thing where the commodity value of what you grow gets to get counted as an expense and part of your match. So that $400,000 budget, like in my case with the eggs, I think at the time I was getting $7 a dozen wholesale for my pasture raised organic eggs. And I was able to compute that the commodity value of them was maybe $3.25. So for every dozen eggs that I produced, I could charge an expense of $3.25 to the grant as my match against $3.25 worth of other expenses, right? So you want to show all of your different numbers. You're going to want to show the value of your labor, not what you necessarily get paid, but what the Department of Labor says that a business manager should make, which I think is around $43 an hour. So you get to count you and your family's time managing the business in that way. Or if your kids are at the farmer's market, what would you have paid somebody else to be at the farmer's market? That goes into the family labor category of match. Who are you going to hire? What are all your supplies going to cost? Who are you going to hire? Who are your contractors? Your social media manager, your revised website designer, your logo designer, all of those kind of things. You want to have very detailed information on where all the money's going to go. It can't be, well, approximately. No, 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 no approximately for federal government grants. We're going to say it's going to cost $23,000.45. And we're going to have a scope of work that shows that. Okay. You're going to need those projections of how much more of the value-added product you can produce over the next 3 to 5 years, projections of how much more you can sell, projections of who you're going to sell to, your business and marketing plan, if you have them. If you don't have them, let's put those together as part of your application and turn that in. You're going to need to be able to verify that your business is in good standing in the state of Washington. So you've got the proper business licenses. If you're an LLC, you're going to show your LLC documents and the verification of your in-kind matching. Like they said earlier, they're no longer checking that you have that money in your checking account, but you better make sure that you do. So it's really good to have it at the time you apply to make sure that it's also going to be there at the time that you receive the funds. Because if you get awarded the grant and you said you were going to have $40,000 available in your checking account and you don't, you may make yourself ineligible to receive the grant that you worked so hard to try and get. So make sure you have all of those things prepared. Okay. So here is a link to the grant application portal. And Emily, if you could put that link in the chat. As you can see here, it is not open now, but it will open on January 15th of this year. And the due date for it will be, I'm sorry, did I say January 15th? January 15th with a due date of April 15th. So you'll have that window of time to get everything into the portal. You can start working on it now. You can wait until it opens, but I wouldn't wait a whole lot longer because you really do need to set aside quite a bit of time in order to get a good application completed. So on the same page, if you scroll down, you'll see this link to VAPG application portal. And that's once it's open, what you will click on to start an application. And then that's where you would work on your application. I tend to work on them offline on Word documents and Excel spreadsheets, and then put everything up in there once we have different pieces done. Okay. So once that portal opens, this is the portal website that link takes you to, and it brings you into the portal. Here's the start of that. The very first thing it's going to tell you to do is make sure you have your SAM registration, and we're going to talk that through because that can take a little bit of time, and you absolutely have to have that if you're going to receive any federal money. Um, yeah, so okay, there's that again. Okay, so the steps you need to do are to register in sam.gov and get a unique entity identifier, which is different than the UBI in the state of Washington. It just is. You have to have a level 2 e-authentication to access the portal, and I'm going to talk you through both of those. You can complete a VAPG self-assessment survey, and Micah posted a link to that earlier. If you don't want to scroll back through that, maybe Emily, you can put that in there too so people can make sure that they saw that. That guides you through some questions to help you decide if you're ready to apply or if your operation needs to grow a little bit before, or maybe the things you want to spend money on may not be eligible. So that self-assessment guide will help you through all that. Then after we get those 3 things done, you're ready to complete your application through the grant application portal. Okay, so we're going to talk about that UEI. So to get your UEI, you're going to go to www.sam.gov and you are going to get started. So everybody has to do this. It's painful, like Micah said. This is not an easy process. And it's one that you should do now. If there is any chance that you want to apply for a VAPG, do this now. So www.samsystemforawardmanagement.gov, get started. Once you get in it, you are going to register for financial assistance awards only. You're not going to be bidding on federal contracts. That's more than you need for this. And getting a unique a UEI is not enough. So you want to click on this first button, register for financial assistance awards only. Okay, then that's going to take you through the rest of the process. You're going to repeat yourself a lot in there. You're going to type the same things over and over again. You're going to put your name and address in about 30 times because that website is built for large corporations like Coca-Cola, where there might be 50 different people who are managing 50 different pieces of it. But for you, it probably would be the same person over and over again. So just be really patient with that process and get that completed. After going through that first step, you're going to receive an email. So be watching for that email and make sure that everything you enter matches what the IRS has on file for you. They are going to check that. Super important that your addresses match and the name matches and how you file your taxes for your farm. All of those things need to match. They're going to run an IRS check on that and send you an email and say, okay, you passed the check. Now click on this link and do the second part. Sometimes people don't do that second part. You cannot apply for this application if you don't do the second part that comes after the IRS verification. I did have somebody who believed that they had done it and they never did, and so their application didn't even get looked at. It was very sad. So make sure you get this done and reach out for help if you need any of this. There are organizations that do help with this for free. Okay. So once you have that SAM registration, you'll now have something called a login.gov, and this is how you log in to communicate with the federal government on anything having to do with your farm. You may already have a login.gov personally for, say, your Social Security or other things like that. But once you have the login.gov, you'll need to do an e-auth verification and an e-auth account. Once you get these things set up, it's going to be a whole lot simpler, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on these pieces up front because they can take a little bit of time. So you go to eauth.usda.gov and let's give them that link too, Emily. In eauth, you're going to use your login.gov login that you created with sam.gov in order to get into your account. You're going to sign in, and then you're going to need to pick uh, authentication methods. So, in addition to your password that you just put in order to apply for a VAPG, you have to have a secondary authentication method. Um, it's just part of the requirement. So here you can see all of them here. Face or touch unlock, authentication application, security key, text, SMS, or phone call, backup codes. Those are the ones that you would be available to you. The easiest is adding face or touch unlock if your laptop or computer allows that. That's the one I use, right? Just smile at my computer and it lets me in. And you can put an authentication app on your phone as well to be able to have it, verify through your phone. You can buy a security key. I wouldn't recommend needing to do that. I don't think that's a really necessary purchase, but that is an option. There's details on how to do that. Text and SMS, one-time calls, backup codes. I've seen several people use this. If you choose this option, you'll get a list of really long codes, and you've got to put that somewhere safe because you're going to type in this long string of letters and numbers to get into your account. And once you've used it, you can't use that one anymore. You got to go to the next one. So if you can do any of the other authentication methods, do those. But this one is also available to you. Okay. So now we've got the sam.gov registered in there so that we have our unique entity identifier. We've got our level 2 authentication. You can do the assessment survey if you want to. And then once that application portal opens up on January 15th, you're ready to start putting things into the portal. Okay. So a couple of reminders on the Value Added Producer Grant. It is not a technical assistance program. This is not going to teach you how to farm. It is not intended to be a continuous stream of capital, although, I love to see people get back-to-back ones. But, the intent is really to give you that next step up to be able to sell more product to more people and more places. And everybody wants equipment. I know, I know. I know we want tractors. I know we want wash pack areas. I know we want food processing kitchens. That is not what this grant is for. This grant is for marketing assistance. It's for processing assistance, distribution, delivery, everything that's post-harvest. You have to be able to grow and harvest on your own. And yes, there are pieces of equipment that are about processing, but this is not the grant for that. In Washington State, there's the infrastructure grant that will come up again in another 2 years. 2027 is the projected next one. That is a good place to get those kinds of grants. But this one is about giving you money to process more product and sell more product. And then when you're reimbursed for expenses that you had, that money comes back to you and you can go buy that kitchen or build that food processing facility. You're like, yeah, but I just can't get there. Well, you can rent a food processing kitchen. If that's your greatest need is a food processing kitchen, you can rent that space with VAPG grant funds. And then over the course of your 2 or 3 years of spending down your VAPG, you can be setting that money aside to build your own kitchen when you're done. You just can't use this money for equipment and capital. I mean, it's sad, but that is just the reality of what it is. Okay. Reminder again on the purpose. So the purpose of this grant is to help for-profit. This is not a grant for nonprofits. There's lots of grant money out there for nonprofits. This is not the one. This is for-profit agricultural producers. You have to be involved in the day-to-day work of running a farm, ranch, fishery harvesting operation. And the money is used to process, market, and sell your value-added products. It is to help expand markets for agricultural producers. This is so every congressman and woman can get up and say that, I helped save the family farm. I strengthened rural economies. I created rural jobs. We all know it's really you all doing all of that. But that is the purpose of this grant, is to make more farm jobs, bring more money back to the farm itself rather than to people past the beginning of the food chain, the processors, sellers. This is for producers. This is to help producers grow and be more sustainable. Okay, now I would love to dive into all those questions and would invite our three farmer panelists back, as well as our rural development agents to help with the questions. And Emily, can you help cull through the questions that have been asked that have not been answered so far?
I will try my best. And just a reminder too, you're free to pop them in again if I miss it. And we will read through these very carefully post workshop and make sure we send something out with everything answered. I know there was a question from Deb before on what percentage of applicants get funded. And you may have just answered that, but I figured I'd ask again just in case.
Yeah, I think Jeff or Micah put something in the chat. I wasn't able
Oh,
to read
okay.
it. But yeah, could Jeff or Micah, could one of you address that? It's
Yeah,
highly competitive.
it is very competitive and hard to really give you a good answer because each year is super different as well. I mean, for Washington State and nationwide, I'd say last year maybe a quarter of the submissions were not eligible, which, so that kicks a handful of apps out because they're not eligible. And then from there, probably half maybe in Washington were funded. And like I did put in the chat, we were excited because Washington tied number one with California for the most number of apps awarded in the state or in the country, which is really cool. So we do have great success here. It's a lot of hand holding and going through things with the applicants, getting into the nitty gritty with everyone. So we try really hard to get as many funded as we can. And we're pretty successful with it, but it is still competitive.
Yeah,
And one thing,
and just to pile on that a little bit, Micah and Melissa there, getting this started early is just really important. Particularly as you hear Micah mentioned, a quarter of those were ineligible. So a lot of times, we can review and see, identify, not all the time. We don't catch everything, but we might see something that's ineligible early on that's fixable for you. And ineligible can be just like having too many expenses that that don't qualify. So get it into us early. We also, as time permits, we try and get a night, give you maybe some feedback on kind of the quality of the application. We don't. There's gray area there. You're going to have folks looking at this that might see something different than we don't or than we do. So, we may give suggestions there too. But at the end of the day, it's very highly competitive. There's some subjectivity to it. It's just inherent to this to this program. But we're going to do our best we want to see them funded. We are your advocates. But at the end of the day, it's going to be out of our control once it leaves here and SCORE becomes the deciding factor on whether you get a grant or not. But for goodness sakes, we want to at least have you be eligible, and then we can look at a SCORE.
yeah, and I always encourage people to reach out to your rural development staff. They really are here to help us. I was trying to get the agency contacts back up on the screen. I'll see if I can scroll back and do that. But they really are here to help you. I like to see people finish an application 30 days before it's due. No less than 30 days before it's due, so that they can you can give it to them and ask them for feedback before the application deadline. If you're inundating them with, please review my application 1 week before it's due, they just don't have time for that. They're understaffed. They have a lot going on. And you want to get good quality feedback from them. So be respectful of their time. Ask them for feedback a minimum of 30 days before the deadline. So in that case, this year it would be by March 15th. And I'm going to find that agency contact screen while Emily asks the next question.
Yeah, that gives you time also to fix maybe what we brought about there, because we may have to sit on it a week or so just before we can get to it. Yep. And all those people can help you on that. We all work in this program. Um, our schedules are such that we may not be there when you're looking for us at that time, or don't be afraid to to reach out to somebody else if you're not if you can't get a hold of somebody there.
Okay, so the next question on my list comes from Rebecca Martinez. Sounds like Rebecca produces a number of things on her farm, including fiber and manure. The manure hasn't been selling as well. And she was wondering, should she narrow her focus to just the manure? Would that meet the VAPG requirements? Or even though they haven't been able to market it as well, or should she focus on fiber sales?
My recommendation is always to focus first on the thing that you're selling the most of that you can sell more of. So if they're selling a lot of fiber, particularly if they've got a waiting list, they're selling out of what they have, that they have that market well established, that's a much better place to start and grow that manure business and save that for your future application.
And maybe it's a planning grant too, Melissa, that
Yeah.
if you're trying to look at feasibility and you know, what makes sense. Again, I don't think it's really designed to tell you what you should market, but if you propose something, you can get some feedback from a third party that may have some suggestions based on research of how it might work.
Okay,
And with that, you can take that into a eventual working capital grant. I think that's something everybody should think about if they're, you know, need some sense. If you're having trouble pitching this, then you may have some questions about the feasibility of the project, and the planning grant may be you may apply for a planning grant this year and kind of give you something to hit the ground running into next year or the year after that or whatever. Um, so think about that.
so the next question comes from Kate and Kelly Pickering, and they ask, does the enhanced production methods mean that they could apply for supplies to make practices organic and pasture raised?
No, that's production, right? First, you need to be doing it organically. And then now you're saying, because I'm doing it organically, I can sell more and I can sell it for more money. And so I need some assistance with revising my website and supplies for the farmer's market to sell my already organic product.
And I will add, it won't cover expenses as far as I know, but we have a great relationship with, we're a partner for Northwest Organic Partnership Program with the USDA at NABC. So if you are interested in going organic, please reach out. I have lots of resources I can send you about that process as well. Lots of opportunities there for resources, not direct cash, but lots of mentorship and just technical assistance is available for that. Laura Gloria asked, is it possible for you to share last year's application as a starting point?
So it's a portal where you put in your own personal information. So, we couldn't share anybody else's information. The presentation that I just gave showed you all of the data that will need to be input into there. So if you go back and look at those slides and answer all the questions that are being asked there, you'll be in really good shape. If you put together a business plan and a marketing plan in the next month, if you really work hard on getting those completed using the USDA template for a business plan, and we have a marketing plan that we will share if you fill out an evaluation form. If you fill both of those documents out, you have answered 90% of what you need to answer for the application portal. So start there.
All right. It looks like the rest of the questions are just around contacts at the USDA, and that has been answered. So I not seeing any other questions right at this moment. I'm going to take the opportunity to put this Google form in the chat for our evaluation. It is very important for us to continue doing these to receive those evaluations. And if you fill that evaluation out, there's a place for your email. We will be sure to send you all of the resources to the email that you input in that evaluation. I will also send the recording out to everyone who registered. But if you want all of those neatly curated resources right in your inbox, we're going to need an evaluation. So please, please, please fill that out. It helps us continue doing this. It helps the USDA know who they're helping. It's just an important part of this process. So
Yeah. And if you'd like to chat about your ideas on a VAPG project, feel free to reach out to me. Here's my email address up on the screen. I would love to set up a half-hour conversation with you to hear where you're at with your business, what your current numbers are, what your goals are with the VAPG, and help you decide if this is the right year for you to apply. And if so, if we can help you get that going. I know there were several questions that came up during the presentation. I'm hoping that those were answered while the different presenters were speaking, but would love to give an opportunity if something didn't get addressed that you would like to see addressed now. If you want to raise your hand and Emily can recognize you. I know there are lots of questions about equipment. Hopefully we answered that this really is not an equipment grant. I would add that the USDA definition of equipment is something that costs over $10,000, if that helps to answer that question. Um, uh, Infrastructure in a building is something that's permanently attached. So if you think of those two pieces of criteria as things that make it eligible or ineligible, that might help answer those questions. There is also that food safety equipment for post-harvest handling or processing that can be up to 13,500, and that is the only equipment allowance in this grant. Anything else that's burning a hole in your heart?
Emily, too, if you can forward Micah and I the attendance kind of figures too, we like to track it too. That would be awesome. No hurry.
yeah, I can send you the registration form as soon as we're done. And I can send you I'll send you a link to the evaluation form as well if you'd like. Or we can just save
I'd,
that.
I'd like to, yes, I'd like to evaluate how I did. I'm gonna
Okay, awesome. I'll
myself.
send you both.
I think I nailed it.
I think you did too. It was great. I always think it's a good time when we get lots of questions.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear from those two 17-year-olds. Are you still here? I would love to hear more about what you're wanting to do. I think that is so exciting to have young farmers.
Well, we appreciate you making this presentation. We're just getting started, so this is definitely something down the road. But yeah, we're just trying to get into farming as started with pastured poultry, and we want to go from there.
I absolutely love that. That's super exciting to me. Yeah, I'm glad you're
Where
here.
is your farm?
We're just gonna be leasing land, but we're in Kitsap County, kind of near
Okay.
Kingston.
Okay. Okay. There are, feel free to reach out to me. Um, there may be some opportunities as well with Farm Service Agency. I know they have youth loans. You may have heard of those.
I
Uh,
haven't. That would be fantastic.
yeah. Yeah, reach out to me and I can get you connected to those folks too.
Yeah,
That'll be fantastic. Thank you so much. We're just trying to find as many resources as we can.
I love that. Are you on NABC's mailing list? I know they have different resources for farmers as well.
No, I'll sign up for it right after this.
Yeah, yeah. Emily will help you with that.
Yeah, I will automatically add, I automatically add everyone to, that registers to at least this learning opportunities mailing list. And if you go to our website, I'll put that in the chat. You can sign up for our regular mailing list as well.
Yeah. And maybe a planning grant might be something you want to pursue. That planning grant is designed for, I have an idea, I haven't done much with it yet necessarily, and I want to apply for money that will help me put together the business plan, the marketing plan, and the feasibility study next year with the idea that then by 2027, you'll be ready to go with a working capital grant. So I would put a plug in for that. If you're interested in that, let us know.
Yeah, that all sounds great. We'll keep looking into it.
Awesome. Yeah, glad you're here. So I want to take a minute and thank all of the partners who have made this possible. You see their names up on the screen. So we just want to thank all of them for allowing NABC to put on webinars like this and bring information to the people who need it. This program is an amazing program. It made such a difference for me as a farmer, and I've watched it make a difference for so many other farmers in our community to help their businesses grow from the beginning stages or the struggling stages on up through sustainability and profitability. So thank you all for being here. Reach out if there's anything that we can do to help. If you want to talk about a potential project, there's lots of people here who are willing and able to help you. And I'll stick around if there's any more questions that anybody wants to talk about verbally. But other than that, thank you all for being here. And you can stop recording, Emily.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks,
Yeah.
Emily.